The first time Ember walked into the little tattoo shop on 3rd and Willow, the air changed. Not dramatically. Not with a crash or a gasp or any of the things that belong to stories. But in the quiet, charged way lightning waits inside a summer cloud. It was Tuesday. Late. A storm had just passed, leaving the sidewalk slick and the air tasting like metal and nostalgia. The neon INK // heart sign flickered, pink and blue against the glass, and Ember stepped inside with a kind of chaotic stillness, soaking wet, wearing a paint-stained tank top, a smudge of charcoal on her cheek, and eyes like slow-burning coals. Juno almost dropped her pen. She didn't believe in soulmates. Or fate. Or whatever other things poets tried to sell with metaphors and half-drunk confessions. But she believed in moments, the kind that stretch like warm taffy in your memory, sweet and sticky and impossible to shake. Ember was a moment. Blue hair, messy and wet, clung to her jawline and collarbone. If you enjoy the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe as that greatly helps the channel. Her hands were ink-streaked, like she'd been sketching all her life and forgot where the paper ended. Her voice, when she spoke, was honey and wildfire. Do you take walk-ins? Juno blinked.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
Professional. Totally not a human bonfire inside a hoodie. Ember stepped closer, gaze sweeping the walls lined with flash designs and framed sketches. I want something on my shoulder, she said, pulling the damp strap of her top to the side. Something that feels like starting over. She didn't explain. She didn't have to. Juno saw the ache in her collarbone, the invisible weight in the way she stood, tall, but tilted, like a tree that's been holding back the wind for years. Come on back, Juno said, voice a little steadier than her heartbeat. The shop was empty. Music played low, lo-fi beats and rain against the windows. Juno led her into the back, where her chair waited like a throne for someone brave enough to bleed. Ember didn't flinch. Not once. Not when the needle buzzed to life. Not when the first line broke skin. Not when Juno asked, softly, why this design? Ember looked at her, eyes glowing under the dim light. It's a phoenix, she said, because I'm tired of burning for everyone else. Juno's hands paused for a fraction of a second, then resumed. That night, when Ember left, shoulder-wrapped, blue hair clinging to her skin, she turned at the door and said, Thanks, Juno. Just that. But it echoed. They didn't speak again for 3 weeks. But Juno found herself sketching blue hair on napkins and thinking about what kind of fire leaves ashes that beautiful. 3 weeks passed. The weather warmed. The city pulsed with art walks, rooftop poetry, and couples kissing in parks like the world might end by sunset. Juno kept busy. She always did. Appointments, designs, commissions. But at night, when the shop lights dimmed and she was alone with the hum of her tablet and the smell of ink, she kept sketching that damn phoenix. And the curve of Ember's shoulder. And her smile, crooked, soft, like it was still learning how to exist. Then on a quiet Thursday, Ember came back. No warning. No call. Just the scent of rain and turpentine, and the doorbell's soft chime announcing her return like a verse to a song Juno never stopped humming. You ever tattoo over scars? Ember asked, peeling off a jacket that was somehow both oversized and flattering. Her tank top was tight. Her posture was looser than before, like she had slept a little better lately. Juno blinked, surprised. Sometimes. Depends on the scar. Ember turned, lifted the hem of her shirt just enough to reveal the faint trail of a healed wound along her ribcage, like a ghost's fingerprint. It wasn't angry, just tender. I want a constellation, she said, still looking away. Stars connecting something painful into something beautiful. Juno's throat tightened. I can do that. They didn't talk much during the session, but the silence wasn't empty. It was simmering. The kind of quiet filled with breath and unsaid things and skin that remembered the last time they were this close. Halfway through, Juno leaned in and whispered without thinking, You know, you're kind of the most distracting canvas I've ever had. Ember laughed a low, husky sound like a midnight fire pit and stolen glances. I get that a lot, she said, eyes flicking toward Juno's, blue and teasing. For a moment, time slowed again. The needle paused. You like teasing your tattoo artist? Juno asked, smirking but trying not to look completely flustered. I like seeing how much she can handle, Ember replied. The tension crackled like vinyl static. That night, Ember stayed after closing. She said she wanted to look through old flashbooks, but she sat across from Juno instead. Barefoot, legs tucked under her, a cup of tea in hand like they'd done this a dozen times before. Do you always keep people at a distance? She asked softly. Juno swallowed. Do you always walk into people's lives like you own the place?
Ember smiled.
Only when I want to stay. Juno stared at her. And this time, she didn't look away. Juno wasn't used to waking up with someone else in her space. Her loft sat above the tattoo shop, exposed brick, paint-stained hardwood, messy stacks of design sketches. It was always just hers. A sanctuary where nothing got in unless she let it. And yet, Ember was here. She hadn't even planned on staying. But the night before had unraveled into soft laughter, shared secrets, and then lips brushing like flint before fire. One kiss had become two. Two had turned into a slow-burning storm that left both of them tangled in each other, gasping and wordless. Now the morning light cut through the window, soft gold painting across the sheets. Ember lay beside her, blue hair messy, one leg draped lazily over Juno's hip. Her fingers were curled, like she'd been reaching for Juno in her sleep. It should have felt intrusive, but it didn't. Juno studied her. The way the freckles danced along her cheekbones. How one strap of her tank top had slipped down. How she smiled, just barely, like even her dreams were flirting. Carefully, Juno reached out and brushed her fingers against Ember's arm. You're staring, Ember mumbled without opening her eyes. You snore, Juno teased, smirking. Ember opened one eye, then stretched like a cat. I do not. You did. Like a dragon with asthma. Ember laughed, flopping a pillow onto Juno's face. Rude. Juno caught the pillow, tossed it aside, and let the moment breathe. It felt good. Dangerously good. Later, downstairs in the shop, Ember sat at the desk flipping through old portfolios while Juno scrubbed needles and prepped stations. You ever regret it? Ember asked out of nowhere. Starting all this? Juno didn't look up. Tattooing.
Yeah.
This life. All the ink and permanence. Juno thought for a moment, eyes fixed on a half-finished sketch.
No.
Regret comes from pretending you're someone you're not. Ink makes you honest. Ember nodded slowly. That's why I'm scared to get more. Juno finally looked up. What are you afraid of? Ember met her eyes. Of meaning it. They stared at each other for a long beat. Long enough for everything between them to buzz alive again. But before Juno could say something reckless, like stay, or I want to know every version of you, the door chime rang. A woman stood in the doorway.
Tall.
Confident. Leather jacket. Red lipstick that matched the tension in her jaw. Juno, she said coolly. It's been a while. Ember blinked. Friend of yours? Juno's voice dropped. Not exactly. The woman stepped closer. I'm here about your brother. Ember froze. So did Juno. Because no one knew about her brother. Not unless they were tied to a past Juno had cut clean from her life. The air in the tattoo shop thickened instantly. Ember stepped aside, watching the woman move like a storm in heels. Measured, elegant, dangerous. Her name hadn't been given, but Juno's whole body had already gone tense, like a wire pulled too tight. I thought I made it clear, Juno said, voice low. That part of my life is over. The woman raised an eyebrow. Didn't say I cared. He's missing. And people are asking questions, people who don't like being ignored. Juno's jaw locked. And what exactly does that have to do with me? You're his sister. And believe it or not, Juno, he might have finally burned a bridge too far. Ember's gaze flicked between them. She didn't know the details, but the energy was unmistakable, something raw, something messy, something painful. I'm not helping him, Juno said firmly. Last time I did, he nearly got me killed. The woman took a step closer. Then maybe you'll help me. Because if he's dead, I want to know who did it. And if he's alive, I want to make sure he stays that way long enough to pay me back. She turned toward the door, then paused, letting her words linger. Think about it. The door chimed again as she left. Silence crashed in behind her. Juno didn't move. Ember waited a moment before speaking. You okay? No, Juno said. But I'll fake it. That night, the mood had shifted. They sat together on the loft floor, a bottle of whiskey between them, the walls buzzing with the hum of old neon and louder memories. I didn't know you had a brother, Ember said gently. Juno rubbed the back of her neck. He's not someone I talk about. He got deep into the wrong scene. I bailed him out one too many times. It cost me everything, my apprenticeship, my mentor, the first studio I ever built. He left me with scars I can't ink over.
I'm sorry, Ember whispered.
Don't be, Juno replied. You didn't break anything. Ember hesitated, then reached out and slid her fingers across Juno's knuckles. Maybe I can help you hold some of it. That single gesture, so simple, almost unraveled her. Juno turned her hand and laced their fingers. Why do you care so much? She asked, voice breaking slightly. Ember leaned in, lips hovering just a breath away. Because I see the fire under all your walls, and I'm not afraid to get burned. Then softly, dangerously, she kissed her, not out of lust, out of understanding, out of everything left unsaid. The kiss should have ended with the fire, but it didn't. It was tender, then hungry, then scared, because Juno didn't know how to need someone like this, not after what it had cost her before. But Ember didn't pull back. She leaned in, grounding them in the soft space between their cracked pieces. The loft was quiet except for their breath, quickened and vulnerable, as they pulled apart just enough to look each other in the eyes. You make it hard to think, Juno whispered. Ember smiled faintly, lips still inches from hers. That's rich coming from the woman who draws art straight into people's bones. Juno chuckled softly, forehead resting against Ember's. This isn't how I do things. I know, Ember replied. But I'm not asking you to do things your way. I'm asking you to do them ours. Juno froze, then kissed her again. They didn't sleep much. Instead, they talked about everything and nothing. Ember spoke about growing up with a mother who left post-it notes instead of hugs, and Juno revealed the first tattoo she ever did was on her own thigh, using a needle she boiled in a teacup. When dawn bled into the room, Juno watched Ember softly snoring into her arm, blue hair like wild waves across the pillow. But the peace shattered when her phone buzzed again. Same number. Unknown. Same message. He's in trouble. And if you don't come now, you'll regret it. Juno sat up.
Hier gut twistet.
She didn't want to go back to that world. But family, even broken, ruined family, still echoed somewhere deep. She didn't tell Ember right away. Instead, she kissed her forehead, tucked a blanket tighter around her, and slipped out the door. The warehouse was on the edge of the docks. Rusted metal, windows like broken teeth, and graffiti bleeding down the sides. Inside, everything smelled of oil, regret, and memories Juno had tried to drown. He was there. Her brother. Liam. Same lazy grin, but with darker circles under his eyes and hands that trembled from more than just cold. Junebug, he said, leaning back in a folding chair like he wasn't the center of the chaos. Don't call me that, she muttered. Liam shrugged. Figured you wouldn't show. You dragged someone to my shop, Juno hissed. You threatened me. She threatened you, he said, nodding toward the shadows where the woman from before stood, watching. Juno turned on her. You didn't say he'd be here. She didn't say a lot, Liam added, then stood slowly. But we need you. Just one tattoo. Juno narrowed her eyes. I'm not branding someone for your debt. It's not like that, he said, stepping closer. It's ancient. Symbolic. You're the only one who can do it right. She didn't know what scared her more, the desperation in his voice, or the fact that a part of her still wanted to help him. She looked between the two of them, then down at her own ink-covered hands. This is the last time, she said. But she knew, deep down, it probably wasn't. Juno's palms were sweating by the time she set up her tools. The warehouse's back room had been hastily transformed into a makeshift studio, industrial lamp overhead, metal table, and the faint hum of tension hanging in the air like a song waiting to snap. Liam pulled off his shirt, revealing a jagged scar across his ribcage and old tattoos, some hers, some prison quality. Where's it going? She asked flatly. He tapped just above his heart. Right here. Same place you said it hurt the most. Juno didn't respond. Instead, she inked in silence, letting the hum of the machine drown out every unspoken word. The design he wanted was strange. Ancient symbols, layered over something that felt more ceremonial than aesthetic. It wasn't just about ink, it was about protection, about sealing something in. Or out. I've seen this symbol before, she murmured. Old Celtic spellwork. Why? Liam's jaw flexed. Let's just say I owe someone who deals in more than favors. She said this'll keep me safe. From what? He didn't answer. Meanwhile, back at the loft, Ember woke to an empty bed and a sinking feeling in her chest. She reached for her phone.
No texts.
Then she noticed something on the table, Juno's sketchbook. Curious, she opened it. The pages weren't filled with tattoo ideas. They were full of portraits, her face, over and over, drawn in ink and pencil and charcoal.
Ember la fine.
Ember biting her lip. Ember looking away, like she didn't know Juno was watching. It made her chest ache. She had to find her. Back at the warehouse, the air was heavier. Juno was nearly finished when Liam's body seized up, his back arching, breath catching in his throat. Liam, she asked sharply, pulling the needle away. His eyes fluttered open, but they weren't the same. For a second they were black. Not dilated, black, like something ancient had looked back through them. Then, just as suddenly, they cleared. He blinked at her, confused. What happened? Juno stumbled back. She didn't know what was going on. But this wasn't just about debts or mistakes. It was supernatural. The woman from earlier stepped into the doorway, arms crossed. You did well, she said, almost approving. Juno stood, protective. What did I just do to him? You sealed a door. One that should never have been opened. Juno grabbed her kit. I'm done. This isn't my world. You're already in it, the woman said. And so is she. Back at the shop, Ember had returned, pacing nervously, waiting. She didn't know what had changed between them exactly, but she knew something was shifting, like fault lines just starting to crack beneath the surface. When Juno finally returned, her shoulders were tense, eyes shadowed, but she still looked at Ember like she was the only steady thing in a world unraveling. I need to tell you something, Juno said.
Ember stepped closer.
Whatever it is, we face it together. Juno hesitated, then kissed her, this time desperate and real and full of everything she couldn't say yet, because things were about to get dangerous, and love might be the only spell strong enough to hold it all together. The next morning brought a storm, not of rain, but of truths, unraveling faster than either of them could hold on to. Juno stood at the large window of her loft, watching the clouds churn over the city like smoke from a fire no one could see. She hadn't slept. Not after what happened to Liam. Not after the kiss that still burned on her lips. Behind her, Ember stirred in the sheets. You didn't sleep, she said softly, pulling the covers tighter around her. Juno turned. Could you? After last night? Ember sat up, bare shoulders glowing in the soft morning light. Tell me everything.
So Juno did.
She told her about the job she couldn't refuse. About the strange woman who paid in symbols and shadows. About Liam's eyes going black. About the fear that what they tattooed into his chest wasn't protection, but a mark. Ember listened in silence, but her fingers found Juno's and held on. You think this woman is dangerous? She asked. I think she's more than that, Juno said. I think she's ancient. The word felt ridiculous in her mouth, but nothing else fit. She said I'd already chosen. That I was in it now. And that you were too. Ember pulled back slightly, alarm sparking behind her blue eyes. Me? Why would I? Because she knew about you, Juno said. She said you were the fire I couldn't put out. They were quiet for a beat. Then Ember whispered, then let's burn the whole damn place down. Later that day, they went looking for answers. Juno didn't know what she expected. Books? Lore? A library of dark magic tucked in a basement? What she didn't expect was Marcy. Marcy was old, wild-eyed, and ran a dusty occult shop that smelled like dried lavender and smoke. She looked like she hadn't left the back room since Y2K. You say you drew this? She asked, pointing to the copy of Liam's tattoo Juno had sketched out. Juno nodded. Marcy's face fell. That's warding ink. Very old. Celtic-rooted. It's used to trap spirits. Spirits, Ember said, skeptically. Marcy looked at her, almost pitying. Not the Casper kind. The kind that walk in borrowed skin. The kind that whisper until you do what they want.
Ember tensed.
Why would someone want to trap a spirit in a person?
Juno asked.
To keep it from escaping, Marcy said darkly. Or from finishing whatever it started. That's when something clicked for Juno.
Wait.
What if the spirit isn't trapped in Liam? Marcy's eyes narrowed. Then someone used him to anchor it, and now it's looking for something stronger. Something more potent. Ember's breath caught. Like someone who's never been inked. Who doesn't know they're open to it. Juno went cold. Like you, she whispered. Outside, thunder rumbled like a warning shot across the sky. Inside, Juno reached for Ember's hand, and for the first time, her fingers were trembling. They'd gone looking for answers. But the truth? It had found them. They left the occult shop shaken, walking fast and silent down the cracked pavement. The wind had picked up, thick with the smell of ozone and something metallic, like the air before a lightning strike. Juno's mind spun. If what Marcy said was true, then this was bigger than Liam. Bigger than one strange tattoo, or even a kiss that still lingered like an open flame between her and Ember. It was about what had chosen her, and what it wanted next. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Ember asked, voice steady despite the storm rolling through her eyes. I didn't want to drag you into this, Juno said. You already left so much behind to be with me. Ember stopped, turned to face her. Juno, I didn't walk away from my old life for something safe. I chose you. And if what's happening is real, then you're not dragging me in. I'm walking in with you. Juno swallowed, her throat dry. You're not scared? I'm terrified, Ember admitted. But being with you, even in this madness, somehow it still feels like the only real thing I've ever had. Juno closed the space between them. For a second, all the noise, the wind, the sirens in the distance, the weight of what they'd learned, faded. I don't deserve you, she said, voice cracked. Ember touched her cheek. You don't have to. You just have to hold on. Suddenly, Juno's phone buzzed. One message. From an unknown number. It's already inside. Meet me where the ink first touched your skin. Juno's breath hitched. The studio, she whispered. It wants me back where it began. Ember's expression hardened. Then we go together. Night fell fast. The tattoo studio looked abandoned, the windows reflecting only neon lights from across the street and the storm clouds gathering above. The front door creaked as they stepped inside. It smelled like ink, leather, and the faint sting of antiseptic. Everything was exactly as Juno left it, except colder, quieter. Then they heard it. A soft scratching. From the back room. Juno led, her hand gripping Ember's as they moved toward the sound. She pushed the curtain aside and gasped. Liam was there. But not just Liam. He stood at the far wall, shirtless, his skin marked with twisting, glowing sigils that pulsed like breathing wounds. His eyes were pitch black, void of light. His voice was not his own when he spoke. You open the gate, Juno. Now you must finish it. The room went cold. Ember stepped forward. We're not finishing anything. You're done using her. Liam tilted his head. Ah, the ember in her heart. You burn bright, but all flames fade. Juno's hands were shaking, but her voice cut like glass. Why me? Why us? The entity smiled through Liam's mouth. Because you're the only one who could hold me. With that, the candles in the room flared. Wind ripped through the studio, and Juno's skin began to glow, the ink on her arm lighting up in intricate patterns she hadn't drawn herself. The spirit was activating something. Inside her, Ember ran to her side, grabbing her wrists. Juno, look at me. Stay with me. You're stronger than this. But Juno's vision blurred. The room spun. Then, her voice rose up from somewhere deep inside her. Not the voice of fear, but fire. I didn't choose this, she said, stepping toward Liam. But I choose who I become. And I choose her. And then, Juno kissed Ember. The room exploded in light. The spirit screamed, recoiling. And just like that, the ink burned white. And the spell broke. When the light faded, everything was still. The air was thick with the lingering scent of ozone and scorched ink. Liam lay unconscious on the floor, his skin now free of glowing sigils. The mirrors in the shop, once blackened and twisted, reflected nothing but two women standing in a room that should no longer exist, and maybe didn't anymore. Juno staggered back, clutching her arm. The tattoo shimmered faintly, like dying embers. Is it over? She whispered, her voice hoarse. Ember reached out, pulling her close. I don't know, she said honestly. But you're here. I'm here. That has to count for something. Juno collapsed into her, pressing her forehead to Ember's shoulder. Her body trembled from more than exhaustion, grief, adrenaline, power. I thought I lost myself in all of this. You didn't, Ember murmured. You just found a version of you that fights back. A silence settled between them, softer than before. The storm outside had stopped. The sky was clearing. They walked out of the studio hand in hand, leaving the past behind like a closed door. The city, bathed in the silver of early morning, looked unfamiliar but open, full of possibility. Weeks passed. Liam didn't remember anything. He'd left the city, trying to find peace. Juno never told him the truth. Some stories were better left to shadows. Marcy closed her shop without explanation, leaving behind a sealed note that simply read, "When the fire calls again, answer with love, not fear." The ink on Juno's arm faded each day.
Slowly.
Like the magic knew its work was done, but couldn't quite let go. She and Ember moved in together. Their apartment was small but sunlit, filled with plants and scattered books, Ember's paint-streaked canvases, and Juno's half-sketched stories. Their nights were quiet chaos, burnt dinners, tangled limbs, laughter loud enough to scare the neighbors. It was the kind of life neither of them ever believed they'd deserve.
But they built it anyway, piece by piece.
With shaky hands and lips that whispered promises in the dark. One night, long after the city had gone to sleep, Ember sat on the balcony wrapped in a blanket, sipping wine. Juno stepped out, barefoot and soft-eyed, settling beside her. You ever think about what would have happened if we never met? Juno asked, her voice light but distant. Ember turned, brushing a blue strand from her face.
Yeah.
And I hate every version of that world. Juno smiled, laying her head on Ember's shoulder. I used to be afraid of burning, she whispered. Ember kissed the top of her head. You're not the fire anymore, Juno. She looked up. Then what am I? Ember tilted her chin, their lips brushing just enough to make the stars jealous. You're the spark that started everything. And in the quiet that followed, neither of them said the word forever. But both of them believed it.